after talking to these guys, and it's like, man, I want to break that record. I thought that'd be something really cool.
What is going on, Diesel Nation? We're excited to have you guys with us today on the Diesel Podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube and aren't subscribed, definitely make sure and click the subscribe button, like, comment, let us know what you think about the episode. If there's a particular guest or topic that you'd like to have covered, we're always checking your feedback on there. Love to be able to take what you guys want to hear and topics you want covered, and then be able to get them on the future episodes. Today's episode, it comes from a listener. He had messaged into us on Instagram and wanted to share the build of his truck and the story of it. And it's really cool. It's an LB7 with a ZF-6. It runs 10-second quarter-mile times, and he's shooting for the 9. So I wanted to talk with him about the truck, his passion for diesels themselves, building it, putting it all together, get all the details of it. So I'm definitely looking forward to chatting with him today. Before we get to it, though, I want to remind you our friends over at Kershaw Knives have a 20% off site-wide code for you. Use code DIESEL2023 at kershaw.kaiusa.com. It's a great way to save some money, get some really cool gear if you need a knife for hunting, fishing, EDC, something around the job site. They've definitely got you covered with a bunch of different choices. 2023 has been a huge year for them, and a bunch of new knives that they've released. One of the newest are the Duralock models, which the blade's made out of D2 steel. I've got a few of them myself. I love them. The way that the blade opens and closes is really smooth, and it's very positive. There's different choices for blade shape and also handle design as well. So if you go to kershaw.kaiusa.com, use code DIESEL2023 and get 20% off site-wide. All right, let's get to today's podcast, learning more about this LB7 with a ZF-6 that runs 10-second quarter-mile times. Ty, welcome to the Diesel Podcast. Looking forward to chatting with you today. I appreciate you reaching out and sharing your build and your truck. I look forward to learning more about it, yourself, the passion you have for diesels, and your journey with it. So welcome to the Diesel Podcast.
Right on. Thanks for having me, Patrick.
How'd the passion start? How'd you get bit by the diesel bug, so to speak?
Believe it or not, I was once a Cummins guy in high school. Was the cool thing to do was cut your fuel pin on your first gen, blow some smoke,
Yep.
But after my high school trucks, I had a couple first gens, and I really didn't mess with diesel for almost 10 years. I commuted for work, and I really didn't have a need for one. I'd say about 4 years ago, I recently bought a 2009 Duramax. After previously driving, an old school Cummins, I knew I needed a common rail for sure. Power just is completely different, stock for stock. I had a 4-door short bed LMM Chevy truck. I loved it. I got a great deal on it. Was working in the union at the time. I'm a union painter. I put all the bolt-ons you could. Ended up deleting it. At the time, I lived in California. I'm now in Idaho. And then came time to smog it, and which, if anyone knows, live in California can be tough with a deleted truck. That being said, the trans started slipping real quick too, and I did some Googling. Found an LB7. I really wasn't familiar with the Duramax platform at the time. So I saw that you could buy a federal LB7 truck, pre-EGR, all that. So found a little loophole. I could still drive a Duramax common rail and do in Cali. So I ended up selling the LMM. I found a one-owner extended cab short bed LB7 ZF-6 truck. The total unicorn truck for me. Like I said, one owner, grandpa owned, took great care of it. I should have never ruined that truck, to be honest. It was a great truck. It would have been great at stock power level. So I already had plans of souping it up. I wanted to make big power with it. And even though I didn't have many stick shift diesels in the past, I'd always drove stick shift cars and enjoyed them. And that's what I wanted. So I just found it, started souping it up. The faster I got with it, this was before like my motor build, etc. I knew I was going to have to eventually go what I have now, a nice single cab long bed. I just found a roller and swapped everything over. It was quite the task.
Was it getting into the Duramax platform, it being your first one? Did you have a clear goal in mind when you started building it, or was it something like, for me, unfortunately, I never really had a goal. I just knew, okay, I added some power. I got used to it after 3 to 6 months. I need more. And then I start adding, and then I look back at it, and it's like, oh, it's come a long way. But I didn't set out with a goal. So did you have something specific in mind, or did it just sort of happen?
So I'll preface this with this. I'm a recovering addict. I'm almost 4 years sober. I would say the best addiction by far is going fast and power. And man, what a switch. It's been great. Right. So, everyone's first goal is they just want to make power. They do their bolt-ons, like you said, they get used to it. In my mind, I wanted to go big, but didn't really have the budget for it. And after doing my research, realized what the potential of an LB7 would be. I knew eventually I'd have to at least swap the connecting rods. That'd be the weakest link there. So I was going to build the truck, at a limit of 600 horsepower. Once I got there, I wanted more. That eventually led me to my engine build and going further and further with it.
That's cool. I wanted to stop for a second and talk about the passion of trucks. And you had mentioned, immersing yourself in it and finding how just what it's like with, I think, performance, and I think the diesel community and events and all that. And I find in like doing a podcast and being into trucks for such a long time, there's so many different types of people that love them. Just from every walk of life. And that's something I found really interesting is, like, say you go to an event and you can just have so much in common with so many different types of people from all over the country. And I think that's why people listen to the podcast. That's why people watch YouTube videos. That's why they build trucks. What has that been like for you in either like transforming your life or in creating excitement or goals to work towards? What is that side of it like for you?
Yeah, the community for sure is great. I left everything behind, leaving California, moving to Idaho, and met a whole new community of people. My local track is about 10 minutes from my house. It's Firebird Raceway. Awesome track. And yeah, awesome people. Back to like high school, first gen trucks. I'd say everyone that had one then was a farmer kid. That's kind of the area I came from. Well, like I said, I didn't have a need for one, I just thought they were cool and wanted to blow smoke. But I knew that's what I liked. I finally got back into one and I wanted to make power. And there was a lot of great people I could just get on Instagram and talk to and ask questions, all this, everything I've done. I built this sucker right here in my garage, never paid anyone a dime, except my trans shop when I break input shafts, all self-taught and, been fortunate to meet a lot of very knowledgeable people for sure.
Now, building the truck yourself and kind of jumping into it, were there any mistakes that you made along the way or things you would do different when you were swapping over like the engine and transmission into the regular cab?
Absolutely. I mean, anyone that's getting into it and you're going to be working on this thing yourself, you're going to make mistakes, before I get into them. Yeah. Practice makes perfect. I now can have that engine and trans out of that truck in like less than 2 hours,
Wow.
How could you do that? Hey man, I've done it a whole bunch of times. I know exactly what wrench I need, what millimeter socket, and it's just repetition. You need to do your research for sure before you build something. You need to have a goal in mind. You definitely save a lot of money on the big end if you stuck to your goal. Like I said earlier, my original goal was 600 horse. I'd be happy with that, right? No, it's going to be just a souped up daily driver. And that's how they all start. And Yeah, I can't tell you how many daily drivers turn into race trucks. So
A lot of them.
yeah.
The now with that truck in particular, when you're setting the goal for it, so you transition from the daily driver to this, did you have either an ET in mind or a power number? What went into that particular build with setting the goal?
Okay. Always wanted the stick shift diesel. After owning it, put more power to it, started researching, found Ryan Peeney, Jesse Rhodes. These guys both had 10-second ZF Duramax trucks, and I thought that was so rad. Both of those guys were a big help to me. Like I said, I just hop on social media, ask questions when I need it. Once I got to that 600 horsepower level, got used to it, and I wanted to go all the way. After talking to these guys, it's like, man, I want to break that record. I thought that'd be something really cool. This being my new addiction, I just put everything I had into it. And when I first moved out here, I did work for a machine shop for about a year, and I learned a lot. I was able to build my engine in my spare time, hour ahead of work, hour after work. The guy who ran the shop was a good help to me at the time. If it wasn't for that, I probably wouldn't have been able to afford the machine work, just the parts alone. I've got billet connecting rods, oversized pistons, got the forged crank, alternate firing order cam. It's built, with the intention of like, yeah, I'm going to push this thing, short of filling the block of concrete. And yeah, so that was the goal.
What was the record with the ZF-6?
So Ryan Peeney held it for the last, I want to say 4 years, 10, 6, 7 at 135 miles an hour in the quarter mile. Oh. And I believe a 6.98 in the 8th mile, same run.
A lot of times when I'm chatting with guys with Duramax trucks and they're racing them, it's all Allison stuff. So to talk ZF-6 and going fast, this is cool.
Right on.
Yeah. So what I'm so curious about it. Like what happens at that kind of power and kind of speed when it comes to the transmission and trying to find resources for it? What's that been like?
So funny thing, I told you I broke a few input shafts. Both of the input shafts I broke were at that 600 horsepower level. And I believe it was due to the clutch I was using. I run South Bend clutches. Once you start racing your stick shift and putting big power to it, the most important thing is the launch. Going down the track, no big deal, but getting that launch perfected took me about a year, especially after, all these bigger, better components I'm putting on. It just adds another variable. And getting that launch dialed in is everything for sure.
Has it changed the either the turbo, the fueling, the power side of it, having a manual versus auto, and what ways does it do it?
Sure. I mean, I'm still learning. I still wonder if I should go big or turbo. I see all these guys with S485 singles, big turbos, big compound kits. And number one, I'm afraid to go compound because I'm pretty sure I'm going to snap another input shaft if I do with that much torque. Right now, my turbo, it's a Fenley Precision 7286 T410. Most racers would say, man, that's a small turbo. And I worked my way up to that. I've had anything from an S369, S467. I've tried probably 4 or 5 turbos with it. You want something in a stick. You want something that's going to launch fast. It's got to spool fast. Coming off that line is huge. And then finding the right clutch for your turbo. That's huge. You want a clutch that's going to slip just the right amount. I believe I broke those input shafts due to the style of clutch discs that it just sandwiched so hard that, that was the frustrating thing. I would launch the truck, dump the clutch, and it would bog down hard. But and finally come alive, and couldn't figure out what the hell is going on. I got so much power. I know this thing can go fast. Finally, I got a Jesse. He told me to get a centered iron clutch. Those discs allow the slippage that you need. When I'm launching it, I don't even dump the clutch anymore. I'm just slip it the entire third. I launch in third gear, and I slip it almost that whole first gear.
With the elevation, we chatted about that a little bit before the podcast. We were talking, about it. So I imagine being in Idaho, that also is going to factor into the turbo size as well. Versus, if you're at sea level, how that all works together, and the science behind it is what's always really interested me. And finding the recipe, so doing trial and error and figuring out which turbo, size injectors, how the tuning is dialed in, the weight of the truck, just all these different factors, and then specific to where you're doing it. So I imagine that plays a role as well as just the elevation that you're at.
Sure. I mean, if I could give any advice to someone, it would just be change one variable at a time. First get that power level goal. You can get on any racing calculator website, type in a weight of the truck, horsepower, and you're going to find an ET. Get your goal in mind. Roundabout. Unfortunately, you might have to go through a turbo or two to figure out the right size, depending on your elevation. When I did have the smaller turbos, man, this thing would launch hard. But after putting this nitrous to it and getting it figured out, practice. Now this thing launches harder than ever. My last event, I had a 147 60 foot.
Wow.
That's kind of in a stick 4,600 pound truck. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah. When I was on your Instagram, I saw a bunch of racing videos. I think I saw some time slips. How close have you gotten to that record? Have you broken it? Where are you sitting at with chasing that goal?
I just broke the record at NorCal Truck Mania. I ran a 10.48 at 128 miles an hour. Pretty cool.
That's moving.
My last event here at Firebird Raceway, before we went out to California for that event, the weather was not great. And they're only allowing us to run 8th mile. And I was pretty upset, which I know all the big dog diesel guys, they only run 8th mile. But not only did I want to beat Ryan's 8th mile record, but I needed to beat the quarter mile record as well. And then I can stick to 8th mile stuff. But so I ran 8th mile that night, ran like a 707 with not a great 60 foot. I just changed some stuff in my suspension. And so with that in mind, knowing that, man, my suspension isn't even dialed in, I can do this. And I know that every time I go out to, an event like at California, the elevation's 3,000 foot lower. I know that turbo is going to light so much harder. And I knew it. I knew it was going to happen. So pretty stoked.
Now with looking into the future a bit with the truck, I'm sure you want to keep progressing it and keep building it. What are some goals that you have for speed? And is that going to change the setup at all on the truck? We talked about turbos, but maybe fueling, maybe suspension, maybe other parts of it.
Right now, as far as fueling, I'm running a 12 mil pump with a stock pump on the side, which is plenty enough for what I got to do. I do have a set of 100 over injectors. I would like to go bigger. And not necessarily to push that much more power, but just to save my pistons. Pulse width is huge, and if I could lower that, that would be great. Hopefully I can keep that engine running a long time. I've been pushing that thing. It's only about a year old, the engine build, so it doesn't have a lot of abuse. I really want a 9-second run. I want to be the first 9-second stick truck in the world. So, well, actually, I say that, but there's some guys out in Bangkok that are running like stick shift diesel Toyota trucks that are flying. But in the States, I'll be the first in the 9. I want to run, and sorry to interrupt. I want to run 9s, and I want to just stick to 8th mile stuff after that, because the best part's the launch. All the rest is whatever. So,
what I was going to ask you about is the team or being able to do this? Are there people that you can count on that help you when you're going to races, or maybe sometimes something breaks and it's the night before race or a few days beforehand and you got crunch time to get it put together? How are you able to kind of bring everything together and go out and have this kind of performance, which, I mean, the truck's going fast, and with the future goal you have, it's going to go even faster. So I imagine there's a team or a support network around you that helps you do this.
Yeah, number one, I want to thank my wife. Without her, even through my past addiction and everything, for sticking with me. She's my rock. She supports me through this, and she knows this is my new addiction. Like I said about the community thing, even out here, I have a couple buddies that I've only known for 3 years that would be here in a heartbeat. If I say, hey man, I got a race tomorrow night, one guy you had on your podcast, Jordan, his Instagram's Baby Max LML.
Yeah.
Great help to me, yeah, it's tough being the only guy. I'm an only child, and I played this game when I was a kid. Last man on earth. How am I going to do something by myself? And by God, you figure it out. You just got to have the will. Yeah, I've had that trans out the night before many races. Checking out clutch, making sure everything's okay. But yeah, you can't do it completely by yourself. As much as I want to think that I can, you can't. You got to have a support system for sure. Whether it's people hands-on or the knowledge.
I think what's so exciting about Diesel, and it's changed. I'm sure you've seen it, having been in it for a really long time, and it may have been the same thing that drew us both to trucks, is it was the ability to go out and buy something, whether it was used or new. You could buy it, you could add power to it, you could take it to the track and have fun with it. And then I think over the last probably 5, 6, 7 years, like the racing side has gone really crazy with the speed and the things that people are doing. But it still comes back to, I think, the individual truck enthusiast and taking the truck out and having fun with it, whether it's running ET, whether it's running, doing what you're doing. It's that excitement on not necessarily like the sponsored racer level or like the company race vehicle. Those are cool. But what I find is it's the passion with the individual truck owner and what they're doing with it. That's where it exists. That's what's going to take it into the future. So I love hearing the story about how, you are passionate about it. You do it yourself. You take the truck out, you race with it. You network with other people who love to race as well, because that's what I think the future of diesel is. It's in the individual passion.
Yeah, I mean, what a shame it would be if they closed any more raceways. Sad thing. Supposedly that was the last year at Sacramento Raceway, and I'm glad to have gone back there. The original record for my truck stick shift diesel was set there by Ryan, and I thought how fitting it could be to go break it there, the last event. So yeah, you got to have the goal in mind. Got to figure out what you want to do with it, and yeah, you can meet a lot of cool people for sure. And nothing feels better than me taking my truck out and someone asking me, hey man, who built that? Who did that? It's like, ME, Ricky Bobby. That's it, man. Yeah.
Do you get a lot of, I bet a lot of people are surprised it has a manual in it, because we're used to seeing, the Allisons and LB7s and I mean, all
Sure.
the Duramax engines, but when you're like, yeah, it's got a manual in it, that would surprise me because you just don't see it a whole lot. I know it's out there, but it's mostly automatics.
Yeah, no one knows until A, I go race it and they see it shift, or B, when they're up close in person checking it out. I'm like, yeah. I open the door and let them look in. Oh, it's a stick shift too. You're great. Yeah, it's fun. To be honest, man, not that I've been in too many high horsepower diesel trucks, but I couldn't imagine racing an automatic truck. I know I'm going to ruffle a lot of feathers, but it just seems lame,
What's there's a lot of passionate manual fans, and I'll hear from them, or they'll ask for an episode, or they'll want us to cover something. It's very passionate crowd.
Sure, I feel it.
I think it's because how it ties you to the vehicle, like the input. It's like you're more connected to it. Is what I hear them say. I've driven manuals before, only a few diesels, but I know I felt like I was a part of it more than an automatic where I just put it into drive and I go and it does everything for me.
Yeah, you are one with the truck, 100%.
With the parts, like putting it all together, I think that's another place that, if someone's out there and they're thinking about doing this and they want to put a truck together on their own time, do it themselves, be able to learn the ins and outs. It can almost be overwhelming with parts because there's so much information that's out there. You get it from so many places. How did you sift through that and find, what kind of turbo do I want to run? What am I doing with my fuel system? What about my suspension? What kind of tips would you give somebody to be able to really focus in or be able to find kind of the power recipe that they're going for?
Man, trial and error, really. That asking the guys who've done it before, that helps. My truck isn't even dialed in. I'm just running, like, for example, my suspension, everything's still in the stock location. That's what assures me that I can go a lot faster. It's still full framed. The bed's gutted. I do have fiberglass, but yeah.
Is that going to be the, say over the winter and heading into next year, what you're going to focus on is going to be the suspension and kind of dialing that in for going a little quicker?
Yeah, I need to make it a real race truck. I don't even have a roll cage in it, sad to say. So that's definitely on the checklist. I can't even run it Firebird Raceway anymore without it. So I'm way faster than what I can even be allowed to run. I'm probably going to leave the Cal tracks in the rear, to be honest. I don't foresee me absolutely needing a 4-link. I doubt that I'll be going that fast, to be honest. But there's definitely some changes to be made. I could do better brakes and rotors, better lighter hubs. I could lighten that truck up a lot still. I know it's there.
I was kind of curious about this because you'd mentioned the first gen and that being your first experience with diesel, and then you go to Duramax. Have you ever thought about doing like a 03 to 07, manual Cummins truck, or are you going to stick with the Duramax platform?
When I first started building the truck, I would go back and forth, or specifically before I built the motor, thinking, man, I could just go make big power on a stock Cummins block right now, but no, I like the Duramax. I'm partial to it. I don't think I will. Maybe I might upgrade to my tow truck. I have an LLY tow truck that my wife drives, but it's a great truck too. I can't foresee changing. I'm a Chevy guy, so.
Yeah, it was interesting when you mentioned that because my first experience with diesels was with Cummins, and then right after that I went to a Duramax, and it was just so different. They weren't race trucks or anything, but just like daily driving, I'm having a little bit of fun. The feel and there's so much different about them, and I got kind of a crash course in why people love them because I absolutely love that truck. It was just so comfortable, and then the power was so smooth. Not that Cummins aren't, but that was just my impression going from one to another, and it was really cool in just how they progressed too. If we think about the new ones, there's so much power that these things make, and I think that's where, though, on the racing side, it transitions back. We have to look to the older ones. We have to look to the LB7s. We have to look to the 5.9s, just because you mentioned California and how it's different there. Well, it's taking place all over the country in different states, and so when we're looking to race something, we've got to look back, and those trucks are still, you can still find them. Companies are still making parts for them, still doing R&D on upgrades and turbos and injectors and so much that it's like this golden time where you can still get the trucks, you can still find them, and you can still get the parts for them.
Oh yeah, you just got to dig, marketplace. I found one of my best buddies, Justin, found him a unicorn truck as well, 4-door, short bed, ZF-6 LB7 truck, low miles. I think he bought it for 15 grand. Wow. I called, dude, if you don't buy this truck today, I'm going to buy it, dude. I'll go get a loan. Yeah, you can find them. I definitely enjoyed my first gen. It was super fun, but I knew that it wasn't that powerful. And when I first got back into the diesels, I just thought in my head, what can I hop in right now and make, double what I made in that first gen? Wasn't even thinking about, parts and performance. And you get bit by the bug.
Yep. Yeah, you do. Well, Common Rail makes it so easy because you can get power pretty easy with them, and then it's just so smooth. And then the sky's kind of the limit, whether it's a Cummins or a Duramax. You can take it as far as you want, and it's a tough. It'd be tough to choose something different. In my eyes, it's just there's so much potential for so much. Whether it's LB7, LBZ, 5.9 Common Rail, a lot of fun you can have with them.
Yeah, I'm not ragging on the Cummins guys. It's just I'm not familiar with it. I'm just familiar with the V8 Chevy. And it turned into a Duramax, and yeah.
You mentioned Instagram and being able to. I think that's a place that it's really helpful to be able to find either a build, a truck, information, see what people are doing, and ask questions. And I'm sure with the setup that you have, people are going to be curious, and people that want to do what you do. How can they find you on Instagram, ask you questions, check out the truck, see what you're doing with it?
Yeah, I mean, and just to mention, I'm an open book. There's nothing I'm gonna hide. I enjoy seeing everybody go fast. What a great thing. I really only use Instagram. I don't have the YouTube or anything like that. But my Instagram is Louie Crew. That's LOUIEKREW. Yeah, if anyone's got any questions, hit me up. I'm an open book.
It was cool, and I appreciate you reaching out because I love to be able to talk. I mean, trucks anytime, but you're the first guest we've had on that has a ZF-6 that's going that fast. And I'm always curious to find those stories. I always love to hear about them. And then hearing your story, which is really, the part I kind of focus in on is that passion. It's what's driving you. It's what's going to keep you going in the future. And that's what a lot of people want to hear about, and they identify with it. So whether they have a Cummins or a Power Stroke, they're going to identify with your passion. And then they get inspired to go out and build their truck. And kind of over the winter, that's when a lot of this stuff happens, and these guys are working in their garage. So I appreciate you reaching out, sharing your story, talking with us about it, and keep us updated when you get into the nines. I know you'll do it, so definitely let us know, get you back on here and talk about the fastest ZF-6 Duramax in the US.
Right on. Fastest stick diesel, period. Take that, Cummins, guys. Yeah, thanks for having me on, Patrick.
Don't forget, diesel fans, make sure and head on over to Kershaw.kaiusa.com. Use code DIESEL2023 for 20% off site-wide. It's a great way to save some money, get some really cool gear if you need a knife for EDC or hunting, fishing, around the job site, around the house. They've definitely got you covered with a bunch of different choices. One of their newest releases in 2023 are the Duralock models. The blade's made out of D2 steel. The way that it opens and closes is really smooth, and there's different choices for blade shapes and also handle shapes as well. So if you're in the market, definitely make sure and head on over and use code DIESEL2023 for 20% off site-wide. Also want to give a shout out to some of our Patreon supporters, Tyler Loewen at 23 Diesel, J Cole, John, all of our other Patreon supporters, all of you who subscribe on YouTube, podcast apps, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. We appreciate all your support here in year 7 of the Diesel Podcast and look forward to bringing you more of the content that you want to hear in 2023. Until next time, keep the shiny side up.